I can't explain why I didn't listen to my grandmother. Maybe I thought it was just an old superstition passed down through generations, a story to keep children from doing foolish things, like touching something they shouldn't. But I should have listened. I should have heeded her warning. I don't remember exactly when the fear began, but it was subtle at first. A strange sensation, like someone was always watching me. A prickle on the back of my neck that wouldn't go away, no matter how many times I turned around to look behind me. At first, I tried to brush it off. It was the house, I told myself. Old houses do that to you. The creaks, the groans, the drafts, they all play tricks on your mind. But then things started to happen, things that were harder to dismiss. Objects would be moved when I wasn't looking, and I would hear whispers in the dark. At first, I thought I was imagining it, but then I saw something that made my blood run cold. It was a figure, dark and tall, standing at the edge of the hallway just outside my bedroom door. I thought it was a trick of the light, but no, the figure was solid, its outline sharp against the dimness of the hallway. I couldn't see its face, only the shape of it, tall and unnaturally thin, like a man who had been stretched too far. My heart pounded in my chest as I froze, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the figure, but when I blinked, it was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The pendant around my neck felt heavier, colder, as though it had become a part of me. And the more I wore it, the more I could feel the weight of its curse settling on my shoulders. It wasn't just a figure in the hallway, though it was everything. The house felt wrong, like something was lurking just beneath the surface. I could feel the walls pressing in on me, the air thick with something ancient and malevolent. Days passed, and the feeling of being watched grew stronger. I couldn't go anywhere without looking over my shoulder, without hearing the faintest sound of footsteps following me. I catch glimpses of shadows in the corner of my eye, and when I turned to look, there was nothing there. The phone calls, too, kept coming, distorted, garbled voices calling out to me, but always just out of reach. And then there was Riley. She was the first person I told about the strange things happening, about the way the house felt like it was alive, like it was trying to swallow me whole. But I could see it in her eyes. She didn't believe me. How could she? Who would? It all sounded insane. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, and as much as I hated to admit it, I began to wonder if the pendant really was cursed. That night, as the storm raged outside, I received another call from Riley. The line was crackling, distorted like before, but this time her voice was frantic, desperate. "Lena, help! Something's behind you." The word sent a chill through me, but before I could respond, the call cut out, replaced by the sound of static. I stared at the phone in my hand, heart pounding in my chest. It wasn't possible. Riley lived miles away. She couldn't be here. But then I heard it. The soft, deliberate footsteps in the hallway. The unmistakable sound of someone, or something, walking toward my room. My pulse quickened as I slowly rose from bed, my body trembling with a mix of fear and adrenaline. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to run, to scream, but my legs wouldn't move. It was like the house was holding me in place, its unseen grip tightening around my chest. And then I saw it, a shadow moving against the wall, the figure from before. But this time it was closer, much closer. I stumbled back, almost falling as I tried to flee. But the figure was faster. It seemed to materialize out of nowhere, blocking the door, its long limbs stretched unnaturally, its face still obscured by the shadows. I don't know why I didn't scream. I think I was too scared to, too frozen in place. The pendant around my neck grew colder, its icy weight pressing into my skin like it was alive, like it was trying to choke the life out of me. It was then that I understood. The pendant wasn't just cursed. It was feeding on my fear, drawing me in, trapping me. And the figure? It wasn't just a ghost, a figment of my imagination. It was part of the curse, part of whatever dark force had attached itself to the stone. I ran. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't stay in that house any longer. I bolted from the room, heart pounding, feet pounding on the floor as I raced down the stairs. The house seemed to stretch, its walls shifting and warping, as if trying to keep me from escaping. I reached the front door, but it was wide open. The storm had torn it open, the wind howling through the doorway like some sort of animal ready to pounce. And then I saw it, the figure, standing just outside the threshold, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark, its silhouette framed by the storm. The phone rang again, and this time it was Riley's voice on the other end. But it wasn't Riley anymore. It was something darker, something sinister. "Get out of the house. Lena, he's coming for you." I didn't think. I just ran. I sprinted into the woods, the pendant digging into my skin like a warning, urging me to flee further, faster. The figure followed, its presence growing closer, always just behind me. My lungs burned with each breath, my legs screaming for rest, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't let it catch me. The rain poured down, drenching me, but I couldn't feel it. All I could feel was the weight of the curse, pulling me deeper into the woods, into the darkness. By the time the authorities arrived, I was gone. The pendant, cold and lifeless, was the only trace of me left behind, lying forgotten in the wet grass. The search for Lena continued, but it would never yield any answers. The house, however, still stands, and it waits. It waits for the next person foolish enough to ignore the warnings, to wear the pendant, to disturb its dark presence. I don't know where I am. I don't know what happened to me, but I can feel it. I can feel the curse tightening around me, a constant presence, a shadow that will never leave. And I know deep down that it's still watching, still waiting, waiting for the next victim to wear the sapphire pendant. I should have listened to the warnings, but it was too late by the time I realized the true power of the necklace Lily had found. We had all heard the rumors about the curse, about the mansion, but none of us, not even me, believed them. It was supposed to be just another night of thrill-seeking, exploring the mysteries of the old mansion on the hill. But that night, everything changed. Lily, of course, was enchanted by the idea of owning something so old, so mysterious. The necklace was delicate, silver, with a deep blue gemstone at its center. Intricate filigree wrapped around the stone, its curves almost hypnotic. Lily couldn't resist. She wore it proudly the moment she bought it, ignoring the unease in the air. I should have stopped her then, but I didn't. We arrived at Hollowbrook Mansion just after midnight. The moon hung high, casting eerie shadows over the overgrown path leading up to the mansion. There was an unspoken understanding among us that this was going to be the last time we tried to get inside. After tonight, we would finally stop coming to this place, stop feeding into the myths that had kept the town in fear for so long. Ben and Ava were already making jokes as they climbed over the rusted iron gate. I followed behind them, trying to brush off the sensation that something was watching us from the darkness. The house loomed over us, decaying and silent, its windows like hollow eyes staring into our souls. The mansion had been abandoned for decades, yet somehow the place felt alive. Every creaking floorboard, every whisper wind seemed to be waiting, watching. When we stepped inside, a chill swept over me. It wasn't just the cold air or the fact that the place was falling apart. No, this was something different, something that crept under my skin and settled into my bones. Ben and Ava were laughing, playing with their phones, completely unfazed. But Lily, she wasn't laughing. I saw the way her eyes flicked nervously around the room. She was clutching the necklace, her fingers wrapped tightly around it as if she was trying to keep it from slipping away. "Lily, you okay?" I asked, stepping closer to her. She didn't respond at first. Her gaze was fixed on something in the dark hallway ahead of us. Her lips parted slightly, and she whispered, "I feel like I'm being watched." I opened my mouth to say something reassuring, but before I could, there was a loud buzz. Lily's phone vibrated in her hand. The screen lit up, and her face went pale as she read the message. The sender was unknown, and the message was simple: "Leave now before it's too late." She laughed nervously, trying to brush it off. It's probably just some prank. But I saw the way her hand shook, and I felt it too, the growing sense of dread. Ben and Ava were still laughing at their own jokes, too distracted to notice. But I knew something was wrong, and Lily knew it too. She tugged at the necklace, as if it were choking her. I watched her face twist in discomfort, her eyes darting around the room like she was trying to find an escape. Suddenly, she vanished. 1 second she was standing right next to me, and the next, she was gone. We searched everywhere, room after room, calling her name into the darkness, but there was no answer. The place seemed to have swallowed her up. I couldn't stop the panic rising in my chest. I couldn't explain it, just that sudden, overwhelming sense of being utterly alone in the most terrifying way. I felt trapped, stuck in some twisted nightmare where I couldn't wake up. Ava was the first to suggest leaving. This isn't funny anymore. We need to go. Her voice trembled, and I knew she wasn't just scared for herself. We were all scared. But Ben wasn't ready to give up. We can't leave her here. She might be hurt, he insisted, looking around desperately. And then, just as we were about to make our way back to the entrance, his phone rang. I could feel my heart stop. It was Lily's number on the screen. Ben answered without hesitation. "Lily? Where are you?" His voice cracked, and I could hear the desperation in it. For a moment, all we heard was silence, then a faint whisper. Lily's voice, barely audible, but unmistakably hers. "Help me," she breathed, and I felt my stomach drop. "They've got me. I'm trapped." I don't know what came over me, but I started running, pulling Ben and Ava along with me. We followed the faint sound of her voice, each step heavier than the last, as if the very air was trying to suffocate us. The house groaned around us, and the walls seemed to close in. Every door we tried was locked. Every hallway led to dead ends. The sound of her voice grew more frantic with every passing moment, until it was almost too much to bear. We finally found a room. It was hidden away in the deepest part of the mansion, behind a rotting door that almost seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. We could see her through a small crack in the door. Lily, her face pale, eyes wide with terror. She was staring at us, but she wasn't looking at us. It was as if something behind her was holding her in place, and she couldn't look away. "Lily!" I screamed, my voice hoarse. "Lily, it's us. We're here. We'll get you out." Her lips moved, but no sound came out. Her eyes darted frantically towards something behind her. The air grew colder, thicker, and suddenly I felt it. The presence of something far darker than I could ever imagine. And then the shadow moved. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't human. It was a shape, something dark and formless. But it was there. It slid across the room behind Lily, just out of view, and I could feel the weight of its gaze on me. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't move. We were all frozen, trapped by the horror of the moment. Lily's scream cut through the silence, shrill and broken. "Help me!" she cried, and the phone call suddenly dropped. The door burst open, slamming into the wall with force that rattled the entire house. We rushed inside, but Lily was gone. All that remained was a cursed necklace, lying on the floor in the middle of a strange circle of symbols, its gemstone gleaming unnaturally in the dim light. We didn't know what happened to her. The necklace was gone the next day, as if it had never been there at all. But I knew, just like I knew that something was still watching me. Even now, as I write this, I feel the weight of those eyes, and the curse that started that night still lingers, waiting for the next person to make the mistake of wearing the necklace. And now it's my turn. I can feel the curse taking hold, piece by piece, pulling me closer to the mansion on the hill. The whispers have started. The shadows have begun to move. I don't know how much longer I can keep running from it. I don't know if anyone else will ever know what really happened in Hollowbrook Mansion. But I know one thing for sure. The curse is real, and it doesn't let go.